Streaming live on Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, and blasttheradio.com, this is The Lowell Green Show. The number to call and be heard around the world is 613-413-2217. Or email Lowell at blasttheradio.com. And now, here is Lowell Green.
Thank you, John. Thank you. Holy mackerel. Yeah, I mean, talking about taking a pounding, or as they say in the vernacular, a shit kicking. Nobody does it better than the CBC. They have just poop kicked us around the moon. What the hell are we going to do with the CBC? I don't know if you've heard the latest outrage from the stuffed shirt left-wing who run things at the CBC. Let me just fill you in, okay? During the pandemic, the CBC went to the government, went to Justin Trudeau, and cried poverty, despite getting about $1.3 billion from the taxpayers. We're having a terrible time, said the CBC. The pandemic has really hit us hard. We need some more money. So, wonderful. Justin Trudeau and his bobblehead say, oh, the CBC, you're kind of friendly toward us. Well, they didn't say that, but they might as well have. At any rate, they voted another $21 million for the CBC. $1.3 billion. And, well, how much more do you need? Another $21 million. Okay, so we'll give you another 20. It's only taxpayers' money. They don't mind. They don't mind. All that people just got laid off by private radio and television. They don't mind. They'd be glad to, give you more money. So what did the CBC use with the extra $21 million? Talk about a poop kicking. Notice how I've toned things down? I got a little...
I did notice.
A little rambunctious yesterday. Called the Prime Minister a few really bad names. I shouldn't do that, even though he deserves it. But let's get back to the CBC. Well, I mean, the CBC is Justin Trudeau. It's essentially, the same sort of a thing, right? All hooked up to the same yoke. And that's a pretty good phrase. I hadn't used that one before, but that's not bad. I'll have to remember that one. But so they got $21 million more dollars. $1.3 billion, B, that's with a B. $1.3 billion in taxpayers' money. They go to the government, that would be Justin Trudeau and company, say, we're having a tough time here. Give us some more money. So they give them another $21 million. So what did they do with the $21 million? Are you ready for it? You ready for it? You ready for it, John? $21 million. Okay. Well, $12 million of it went out in pay raises for all those hardworking, struggling CBC employees, over 50% of whom make over $100,000. $12 million in raises, while the rest of the private television, radio, and so forth are being laid off by, what, the hundreds, maybe the thousands, John? I don't think anybody...
Numbers. Absolutely astronomical numbers.
We're just getting fired right, left, center, right, left, the whole... We know what was going on. Not at the CBC. $12 million in raises, while everybody else in radio and television, private, were being laid off or had salary cuts or whatever. But they didn't end there. No. I mean, because the ratings, as you know, the CBC is, what, about 427th or something out of 428? I don't know what it is. It's terrible. The ratings are stinko. I'm going to tell you something that Mike Duffy and I and a couple of other people, we used to have Mike Duffy had the program called Sunday Edition. It was at noon on Sundays. Not exactly prime time, right? They paid me $45 for my participation, by the way. $45. It was an hour. I'm going to tell you something. The reason I'm mentioning this is we, on that one CBC noon hour program on Sundays, had more listeners, more viewers than the CBC has for its late night news on all of its stations across the country. Nonetheless, $12,000 in raises. Million. Get it right. 12 million in raises, 15 million in bonuses. What did they get bonuses for? Did the stations do better? No. Did terrible. Any really innovative shows? No. So why did they get bonus? Well, it's the CBC. Anybody get laid off? No. So anyway, that's what it was. 1.3 billion taxpayers. That's your money. We don't have enough money to hire more nurses. We don't have enough money to put more beds in our hospitals. But by God, we got money for the CBC. Lots of it, including raises and bonuses. So my question then is, what the hell are we going to do with the CBC? I'm not prepared. I don't know about you, but I'm not prepared to continue with this kind of outrage. I'm one of those that got turfed from a radio station after 60 some odd years. Number one ratings.
Me too.
All
20,
the rest of it.
23 years.
23 years.
Yep.
And those sons of bitches in the CBC not only don't lose any jobs, but get $12 million in raises and $15 million in bonuses of our freaking money. Not the CBC's money, not Trudeau's money. Nobody gets but Trudeau's money. But my money, your money, John, all of you people listening, watching, all of you intelligent people listening, watching, which includes you all. So my question is, what are we going to do? We've talked about this before, but I'm not prepared to just scrap the whole thing. I think we need a national broadcaster, a public broadcaster. But I think that it should be, and I'd like your opinion on this, like public broadcasting in the United States. I don't know about you, John, but I watch a number. I'm increasingly watching more and more public television out of the United States. There's a station comes out of Buffalo that I watch a lot. There's some very good programs there. Program on travel, for example. Mighty Engineer, Mighty Ships. There's some really good programming, and it's all paid for by subscribers. In other words, the philosophy of public television in the United States is, you want public television? Okay, you got to pay for it. Now, I admit that some of those fund drives are a little bit pain in the ass, right? You know, they play, I don't know, Glenn Miller or something, and you send in money and so forth. But, you know, an hour of that is a little bit of torture. I grant you that. But they raise that's I'm going to tell you, it's a hell of a lot better to spend an hour doing that once a month or whatever it is than it is to fork over $1.3 billion of my money desperately needed elsewhere. So that to me, that's what I think the fate should be. We've got the television stations are there, but I just don't think that we, the taxpayers, should have to pay for this kind of outrage. You know, one of the things that really strikes me here, John, is that, you know, I use the phrase a kick in the teeth. That's exactly what this is. I mean, the CBC knows damn well what's going on in the radio television industry. It knows damn well what's going on in retail and everything, almost everything else out there. I mean, how many businesses had to close down and are still suffering? How many people suffered and all the rest of it? The CBC knew this full well. The CBC was reporting on it.
Right.
Okay, so they knew what was going on. But despite that, handed out, $21 million in raises and bonus in 1 year. It's outrageous. They just deliberately kicked us in the teeth, or kicked us in the ass with a frozen boot, if you like. Whatever it is, they kicked us when we were down. We were suffering. We were having a tough time, losing jobs, losing income, losing businesses, losing homes. The CBC is handing out $21 million in bonuses and raises. So what do we do? That's television. Television, CBC television is, as I say, it's stinko, okay? It does terrible. Ratings are terrible, rotten. Radio, CBC radio does very well. In most markets, CBC radio is number one. Well, one of the reasons is they don't have to sell commercials. They're up against private television, private radio, I'm sorry, that's got to sell commercials and a lot of commercials, which turns a lot of people off. So I say, look, you know what? You want CBC radio, you like that programming, fine, you pay for it. Well, I think it should be exactly that. Some sort of subscription. Now, I'm not sure what the situation is in Britain. You may be more aware of this, but I know for a time in Britain, if you wanted a radio, you had to subscribe. You had to pay yourself. Anybody that wanted it, you had to pay. And I'm not sure how they did this. You had to punch in a code or something. I think it's the same thing. You want CBC radio? Good, you pay for it. Because why should I or John lost our jobs in private radio and all the other? Why should we have to pay so that you can watch radio that doesn't have any commercials? Why? Or any other taxpayer for that matter. So I'd like to know what you think. Are you ready just to scrap the whole thing? Do we convert somehow or other CBC television into public television? Let me ask you this. Would you be prepared to subscribe to CBC television? Would you be prepared to subscribe to CBC radio? Apparently, there's one of the things I've always been suspicious of. I think that quite a few people claim that they're listening to CBC radio because they think it's the proper thing to do. Indicates how intelligent they are if they're listening to this latest news about garbage dumping in Indigenous people, which is about the only program. But anyway, I'm a little bit bitter, right? But what do you think we should do? What are we going to do with these elitist bastards? That's my question here. John, any response so far?
Absolutely. And you know what? There are so many layers to any conversation regarding the CBC just because of the sheer size of it. And it's TV, it's radio, it's internet, it's there to serve all the Canadians, it's government funded, layer upon layer upon layer. Lowell, how many people would have worked on your show? Like in the last years that you were at CFRA, how many people would have been hired to work specifically on your show?
One, me. Well, no, and one other person. There was
right. So
Ronnie,
you had a technical engineer. Yeah, you had a technical engineer and somebody screening your calls.
No, same person. Oh no, that's right. I'm sorry. You're right.
Oh.
You're right. There was a screener and a technical engineer.
Right.
My technical engineer also acted as a kind of producer. For a long time, it was Ronnie Roberts. Did a great job. She would, if I wanted guests, she would phone guests, etc., etc. And then there was a screener that I suspect made about $4 an hour. I don't know.
Exactly. So I'm aware of that. So it was you plus two. How many people do you think it would take to run that same show, one host, on CBC radio?
Oh, heavens only knows. I'll never forget. I mean, I think most people have got similar stories. I did the play-by-play broadcast when they brought the body of the unknown soldier and placed it in the unknown soldier tomb by the National War Memorial. I did a live broadcast there, one person. The CBC showed up with so many people that they had to build a stand for them. There must have been.
That's my point. I'm guessing
25
to do your same show on CBC, Lowell, easily would have had 15 to 20 people in that room.
Yeah, now mind
that's
you,
the kind of thing that people
outside.
are just not aware of. Private radio versus government funding.
Yeah, they built a sort of a temporary stands, like a what do you call it? Yeah, but don't forget, I mean,
like a grandstand.
Your grandstand. That's the word I'm looking for. Yeah, but don't forget this. They had to do it in English and in French. All right, so that accounts for some of it. But yeah, there would be 15 or 20 people to do the job that I did by myself. And by the way, I had no producer for that. I did all of my own research. I scripted all my own stuff. I got myself on the air. I got myself off the air. That's typical of it. And don't forget, this is the number one AM radio station in Ottawa. Okay, go ahead, John.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so you look around at the TV operation. I know that the people at CTV, they're operating their own cameras. There's not even a camera operator anymore. I mean, that's where the layoffs have happened, is behind the scenes. I'm sure at CBC, you've got camera operators, you've got audio engineers, you've got all of those layers that are there. And so when I hear about this, my question is, what possible financial hardships Would the CBC have suffered during the pandemic? It's not like their advertising revenues would have been affected, at least not on the radio side. The TV side is negligible at best. What possible economic hardships could they go to the government and argue that they're suffering through this COVID-19 pandemic? I don't get it. It makes no sense to me. And I just held back the biggest F-bomb I've ever wanted to let loose into a microphone. It's disgusting. People have no idea what the CBC has, even just in the quality of the equipment that they buy.
Let me tell
versus
you about
what private radio can do.
Let me just give you one small example. I gave you the one about at the National War Memorial. Let me give you another one. I forget, this is many years ago, a number of years ago, and I'm doing a CBC program of some. That was about the only time the CBC ever had me on, and I'm in the studio here in Ottawa, and they've got the mic. They put the guy comes. Oh, one guy comes and puts water on my table.
I know.
Okay, that was his job, to supply water. Another guy comes and he puts the microphone. I went to adjust the microphone. Oh, listen, a guy comes. It wasn't him, but a supervisor came and said, "Mr. Green, don't touch that microphone. That's not your microphone." Words to that effect. Oh, geez. So, and I was just readjusting it because anyway. So, and sure enough, this guy comes and he puts the microphone back again. I said, and he whispered in my ear. He says, "Don't touch the microphone." He says, "The union goes crazy." So that was just.
I know.
That's exactly what he said. The union go crazy. Go ahead, John. I mean, it's just unbelievable. 1.3 billion. They cry poverty. They get another 21 million. They dish out $15 million in bonuses for absolutely nothing. There was no excellence, and $12 million in raises in 1 year. John, what are people saying here? What should we do here?
Terry's got a good point. Ordinarily, Terry's jokes kind of make me cringe a little bit, but he's bang on here. He says, "I wonder what Rosie Barton's makeup person makes." Listen, you know what the reality is? Rosie Barton would indeed have a makeup person. Nobody at CTV or Global or insert private TV station here has a makeup person. They did back in the day, but those are long gone. They're doing their own makeup now. Yes, they are. All right. You've got me fired up today, Lowell. All right, here we go. Some of the comments from the folks. Joshua says, by the way, we're on Facebook, The Lowell Green, Milkman Show, and Blast the Radio. We're on twitch.tv/Blast the Radio. We're on youtube.com/Blast the Radio, and of course on Blast the Radio itself. So wherever you ordinarily post your comments, post them there. We'll get as many onto the screen as we can. Whatever I can't get on the screen, I send to Lowell, so he's got some weekend reading to do. And the phone number for your calls and your texts, 613-413-2217. Joshua, you're first up. We need a PBS model here. Better quality programming paid for by people who actually want it. That was the first comment in today. Patricia says, even PBS in the States does fundraising during the year. No reason CBC should not try this. Richard, of course the CBC is fine with getting $21 million. They will not be affected if the impeding, let's hope not, passing of Bill C-11. CBC will be the mouthpiece for the government. Oh boy, are we in for something we never experienced before, says Richard. Let's go to Deborah. She just commented moments ago, what we're going to do is continue to pay for a less than substandard service that spews state propaganda until we rid ourselves of the current government. Pierre has said the defunding of the CBC will happen under a conservative government.
I've never asked Pierre exactly what he means. I'm not sure if he's talking only about defunding CBC television or it's television and radio. I'd like to talk with Pierre, and I think that we need something more definitive from him to explain exactly what he plans to do here. Is he just going to, if he defunds the CBC, presumably they'll just shut down. But I mean, there's billions of dollars worth of equipment there. It would be a terrible shame, it seems to me, not to utilize it in some form. So I think when Pierre tells us he's going to defund, I think he needs to take a step beyond and tell us, okay, here's what I plan to do. PBS form. Okay, the transition there would cost some money, no question about it. And the other question about CBC radio, which, as I say, for the most part, is quite successful. It seems to me the answer is quite simple. You simply tell the CBC radio, you got to go out and support yourself. You got to sell commercials just like every other private radio station and television station, for that matter. But I think that Pierre needs to be a little bit more definitive in his explanation here. Go ahead, John.
There are a million ways I would cut at the CBC, but okay.
Yeah.
In fairness to Pierre Poilievre, when he talks about something like that, would the CBC not be one line in the budget for the government? Like, it wouldn't be broken down to CBC TV gets this much,
I'm not sure.
CBC online gets this much.
I'm not
Yeah,
sure.
okay, that's fair.
It's a very good
That's
question.
fair.
But I just don't think
We got a
that
lot
you
of
can-
comments coming in, Lowell. Go
Go
ahead.
ahead. Yep. No, I was just going to say, I just think we need more of an explanation. It's too simple to simply say I'm going to defund the CBC. That would leave all of those radio stations, thousands of employees without jobs. I don't think we're prepared to do that. Go ahead, John.
No, and I never want to see broadcasters out of work.
Yeah.
I run a business that is very much about getting broadcasters work. So what you're saying then is Pierre Poilievre, what you'd like for him to do is describe his vision for how a new CBC
Yes.
would look.
Precisely.
A new
And
business
radio.
model.
And
Okay,
radio
yep.
as well.
Well, yeah, CBC, the whole
Yep.
kit and caboodle, the whole 9 years.
Absolutely.
Let's go to email. By the way, we're still dealing with a bit of a delay. I'm in New Brunswick. The internet here is absolutely horrid. Back home on Monday, so we should have that straightened out. So thanks for putting up with Lowell and I talking over each other. Rob in Carlton Place says, no, Lowell, there has never been a more disgraceful, incompetent government anywhere at any level in this country. And I have been asking the same question as you. Where are the real liberals? I guess this refers to yesterday's show. That's okay. Are they so desperate to keep the liberal brand in power they would let their own country become such a disgrace? I'm so disheartened. I have not felt good about my country in 6 years.
I'll tell
All
you
right,
who
to the
I
C-
feel good about. I feel good about those businesses that manage to survive by being innovative, being honest, continuing to do their best. And there are a lot of them in our area. And one of the best is Shields up there in Pakenham. They're not a bad transition on that one, right?
You're the man, Lowell Green.
But and I've said this many times before. If you're going to keep on doing business in this city, you'd better be good, because the news gets around really fast. You screw up, you cheat somebody, you don't perform the way you say you should or could, and the news soon gets around. Well, I'm going to tell you, the news gets around with Shields. They've been in business, same family, same location for 47 years. Okay, same family, grandpa, son, and then and the grandson. So they're still there, folks, which means they've been doing business the right way, and they do. Price is very, very competitive. I know a lot of people say, "Oh, well, the big box stores, the price has got to be better." Well, maybe they are, but maybe they're not. Check them out. At the very least, give them a chance. They're also now the registered Sony dealership. Don't forget that, folks. If you're thinking of televisions, Sony is a very powerful name, and Shields is now a registered dealer for them. Appliances of all kinds. Yeah, 90% of what you want is in stock, means they'll be in your house very shortly. John, back to you, my boy.
Let's go to email, and this is, so where did I just put Lisa's email? There's Lowell, I, like many I've talked to, don't own a television. Some folks have not watched some form of TV in decades. Lisa, yeah, a lot of people watching online. The CBC's got quite the online division as well. Rob in Carlton Place is chiming in regarding the CBC, so here we go, since I'm in the email box anyway. I think a big part of Pierre's success is his courageous promise to wind up that useless liberal propaganda machine called the CBC. I will never forget watching Peter Mansbridge announced that Chrétien was retiring after ad scam. I swear his eyes welled up with tears. It made me nauseous. Hopefully, he will have the courage to do the same with Canada Post and Via Rail. Over to Paul on Facebook. The CBC means nothing to me. The CBC could go off the air tomorrow and I wouldn't even notice, nor would I care. Sean says Sunday edition was great and I tried to never miss an episode. On Twitch, Laurentian View Terry says, if John ran BTR like the CBC, he'd have to hire 100 employees. That's a very conservative number, Laurentian View Terry. Mike says, this is unbelievable. Linda says, this is disgusting. Valda says, it's disgusting that we're all paying for the CBC. John, I believe this is the first time we've heard from you. Welcome to the show. Trudeau is a cash cow for the CBC and all other left-leaning liberal outfits. And DL on Facebook. But Lowell, this is sarcasm, by the way, Lowell, I'll preface it by saying that. But Lowell, how else will JT get his commie propaganda out without this radio and TV station?
Well, yeah, that's a good point. But don't forget, I'm asking what you think should happen. I repeat, we got to think about this, okay? I just don't think that you can shut down the CBC.
No.
with all of that equipment, stations, and so forth. So somehow or other, if we're going to do something, defund, there's got to be a transition to something else. And I'd like people to comment on that. Do you think that it would be a good idea to convert CBC television as it now exists into public television? Would you support that, or are you really serious? Just shut her down? But that's all that equipment and everything, all of those employees. Are you really prepared to do that? And radio, what do you want done with CBC radio? Go ahead, John. Excuse me.
If I was running the CBC, if I was asked that question by someone in power, I would say, look, here's what you need to do. You make it all one. Whatever is going out to the TV is going out to the radio, is going out to the web. English, French, right across the country. And as someone just pointed out moments ago, it was David. He says BTR can run this show with two people. That's what's complicated about it. Tony says, I live for the day when the CBC is dismantled. Hopefully, Pierre Poilievre will be quick to act once elected. All right. And Donald actually has what he'd like to see happen with the CBC. He says, sell off CBC right now. New owners might tell the truth about things. Well, I still think we need a public broadcaster to tell the stories of Canadians and Canadian stories, not just here, but around the world. Don't forget, CBC for a long time had a shortwave service as well, serving Canadians who are overseas. And says, why not join the rest of the broadcasters and sell advertising? There's a novel idea.
Barbara says, do they no, but I mean, television does sell advertising. Radio does not. Go ahead.
Yeah, sign me up to buy advertising on what's Coronation Street. Yay. No thanks. Larry says, never watch CBC TV or radio. Shut it all the way down. Boo-boo on YouTube. Oh, no, not the CBC again. The Fibberals fund the CBC to get their platform supported. If the CBC doesn't support the Fibberals, they won't get funding. People lose their jobs.
That's fine. All this is fine, but you're not providing us any new information here.
Right.
That's what I would like. What do you really want to shut it all down? I want you to think about that. I just don't see how you can shut down an entire television network. What are you going to do with all of the equipment? What are you going to do with all the employees? Or should we somehow or other have a transition? Someone suggested to sell it off to private. Okay, that's another idea. But please provide us with something new, okay? Not just we know the problems, but do a little thinking here and recommend what do you think should happen, really, okay? Not fairyland, but in real life. Go ahead, John.
Tony's got a question. He says, isn't the CBC in direct conflict with private industry, which is not permitted? Yes and no. They've got a very different mandate than private broadcasters do, Tony, which is why they cover very different things and do it very different ways. Anything on that, Lowell?
I'm not sure. Yeah, they compete. There's no question they compete with
Sure.
private. And with radio, they compete very well. But it's an unfair competition because private's got to sell commercials. CBC radio does not. That's very easily remedied. It's not I would not shut CBC radio down. I think it serves a very good purpose. But I think that it should pay for itself. Go ahead, please.
Well, we've talked about the CBC previously, and whenever the ratings are published, CBC radio in Ottawa, anyway, certainly comes out way above the rest. It's massive. But commercial radio takes the CBC's ratings out and doesn't show them because they don't sell advertising. I would be curious. I really would, just as a broadcaster and just as a Canadian. Okay, throw some commercials in there. I'm not saying they have to do 8-minute commercial islands like a commercial radio station would, but throw in a minute and a half, 2 minutes of commercials. What kind of a dent does that really put in their numbers? Because that's going to tell you the quality. Is it quality of programming, or is it the fact that there are no commercials?
I just think that CBC. I think that's what I'm saying is I think CBC radio should have to survive in the ocean just like private.
Yep.
In other words, whatever private radio has to do to survive, you should as well. Now, I'm going to tell you something. My feeling is that if we did this, I think the programming, both radio and television, would improve immensely. Right now, there's really no pressure on either CBC radio or television to be good.
True.
It doesn't matter whether you're good or bad. You get your money anyway. But in private business, you got to be good, or you don't survive. You go under. But not with CBC. So I think, somehow or other, making them pay for themselves would greatly improve broadcasting. Go ahead, John.
All right, we're just about out of time. Let me just run down a few of the comments because I've been sort of hogging the show here, and I always
Sure.
feel bad about that. Privatize the CBC, says Jake. It should be funded like PBS, like in the USA, says Murray. Make CBC an all oldies station, TV and radio, says Ray. I like hearing Ed Lawrence, the gardening segment on CBC, says Janet. The public broadcasting sounds
Okay,
great.
wait a minute. Hold it. Janet, you like listening to the gardening program. Great. Don't you think maybe you should pay for it? Why should I or John pay for it when we have no interest whatsoever? You want broadcasting like that? You want gardening? Fine, good for you.
That's called podcasting.
You pay for it.
That's a
What do you think?
podcast.
What do you think
That
of
should
that?
be a podcast or a YouTube channel that specializes in that. You're
point.
exactly right. Why are we paying for stuff like that?
Good. Okay. John, a couple more and then let's go.
All right, sir. Breck, welcome to the show. CBC is forced on everyone in TV packages. I don't want CBC, so why can I not have the choice to not pay for it in a cable package? If you ever listen to CBC on shortwave, you would never recommend it. I have no Canadian news. It was just world news in English. We once listened to 37 minutes of how to walk your dog safely.
Okay, that's fine.
in
That's
the
fine.
winter.
But you're not addressing my question here. And we have to go. And once again, I just remind everybody that there's a reason I do the program. I'm looking for your input, not to rehash all of the problems. We know that. But what advice have you got? You know what? I mean, the politicians are doing a lousy job. So I'm looking to you to do a better job. Thank you all. We will be back tomorrow.
The Lowell Green Show is seen and heard live around the world at 2 p.m. Eastern. Connect with us online at blasttheradio.com/Lowell Green. Can't join us live? Download the Lowell Green podcast. Available on Apple, Spotify, Google, and more. Ask your smart speaker to play the Lowell Green podcast. This is a production of blasttheradio.com.